Greetings and welcome. This is Rajiv Makhni reporting from the field, or should I say reporting from a factory. You know, around me, and I'll show you some shots of it, this is Vivo's manufacturing facility for all their smartphones in India. It's a massive factory, but unfortunately, I'm not going to show it to you on this show because that's our big story on Cell Guru. If you want to see the journey for smartphones starting from just a small little chip to how they actually make the entire phone, do tune into Cell Guru this week. It's a big story for us because they finally invited a camera crew and me in to show their entire manufacturing facility. It's not usually done. But our stories on Gadget 360 are also big, huge stories. We'll start off with the Shure STEM 1. This is the Wall 1 and the Desk 1. Now, professional equipment for a conference room. You know what's the biggest problem when you're doing a conference? Audio, right? You can't hear people, they can't hear you, many people talking at the same time. It is a disaster. Well, this is the solution, and this is a solution that you and me can also use, not just for professionals. I think everyone should have this. We were absolutely stunned by what we saw and we heard. Then we'll move on to the Microsoft Surface Pro X. Now, a tablet that is really super professional, top of the line flagship specs. We'll tell you what we thought of it. Then we'll move on to another piece of professional equipment, the DJI Ronin 4. It's, I think, one of the first times I've seen professional camera equipment that has been mounted onto a gimbal. So it gives you all kind of things. You can operate it on your own, you can operate it with a crew. This takes your video game to a whole new level. And then the Fitbit Sense, a very interesting band by Fitbit with a great AMOLED display. Let's get started with today's Gadget 360 show.
Panasonic revealed the new Lumix GH6, successor to the GH5. It has a 25.2 megapixel micro Four Thirds camera. It can record footage in 4K 10-bit 422 and 10-bit 5.7K at 60 frames per second. The looks are very similar to the GH5. There is also a 3-inch fully articulating touchscreen. It also is the first micro Four Thirds camera to include log formats for video recording for better control of the dynamic range and colors of the footage while editing. It has been launched for the price of $2,199, and the release and price details for India are unknown for now. The game developer Capcom released a teaser for the next version of their iconic fighting game franchise, Street Fighter 6. Even though the teaser was mostly a cinematic sequence rather than actual gameplay, it does provide us with a hint of how the game might look. The graphics and character design seem to follow a more realistic approach than the previous versions. The announcement of the new version comes 6 years after the release of Street Fighter 5. The details regarding a tentative release date has not been revealed yet.
Our top story today is the Shure STEM, the Wall 1 and the Table 1. This is all to do with conference rooms and getting your audio right. I think the biggest problem we face, irrespective of whether we are doing a one-to-one call or one-to-many, many-to-many, is audio. I think the video part is being solved with a lot of solutions. Audio, still a big struggle. So Shure says they have the right solution. But this is a professional solution, more or less. But you know, we tried it out and we think everyone should have one of these. This is why we thought we'll do it out here. Especially the Table 1 is fantastic, even if you're doing one-to-one calls. Here then is our review.
With the world getting back to their offices, office meetings and conference calls in conference rooms are making their way back. And for that, Shure, with 100 years of experience in making products that both record and produce audio, has been developing a smart ecosystem of products that help simplify setting up devices for such meetings. And today, we're taking a look at two products from this innovative new lineup, the STEM Wall 1 and the STEM Table 1. From the first look, you might confuse it for a soundbar, but it is in fact a large speakerphone that can be mounted onto the wall or placed on a table. It can clearly pick up the voice of any user in front of it through any of the 15 beam-forming mics on it. It comes with a signal processor inside that can automatically cut out the background noise and voice reverb inside the conference room. The port behind it supports power over Ethernet, which enables it to be powered on all while it's connected to a device. It also has a USB port through which it can be connected to a PC or laptop for easy integration with Zoom and other video conferencing software.
For reproducing the sound, there are two full-range drivers and subwoofers which carry the sound of the person at the other end of the call clearly and loudly.
Plus, it also has lights on the front to indicate the direction from which the sound is coming. Moving on to the Table 1, it has the same level of simplicity and technology working for it, just in a different form factor. The Table 1 is meant to sit at, surprise surprise, the table. It has an array of mics arranged in a circle over a circular base measuring 8 inches in diameter. 9 built-in mics can pick up the voices from all around the device. Similar to the Wall1, Table 1 also has a signal processor that can remove any background noise or reverb in the sound picked up. It is also powered by the Power over Ethernet port. The USB port can be used to connect the speakerphone to a laptop or a PC.
The speakers on this device are downward facing along with the subwoofer, and the voice of the person at the other end of the call can be heard easily.
The buttons on the top of the speakerphone control the volume along with muting the mics.
And these products can work separately on their own while also having the ability to work with other devices of the ecosystem as well.
They can be used interchangeably, and the process to set them up is extremely smooth.
Both the speakerphones are also smart enough to understand the acoustics of the room and can tune themselves according to it to produce the best sound possible and pick up the voice of the users well.
And the new voice you just heard was my colleague Anusuya Mathur with her video recorded through the products from the STEM ecosystem. The STEM Wall1 and Table1 are smart and efficient. They pick up the voice of the user extremely well, reproducing the sound of the caller loudly and clearly, all while being smart enough to do it for every room based on the acoustics of that room. And because of that, they will be our firm recommendation for all the conference room needs, with the Wall1 priced at 1,14,000 and the Table1 priced at 60,000.
Let's move on now to the Microsoft Surface Pro X. Microsoft has a very interesting new tablet. This is a tablet, but it is more or less a notebook replacement because you will be using it with a keyboard. Powerful stuff, great screen, very, very good looking. But it's really the specs, the performance of this is absolutely out of this world.
Okay, so we're all familiar with an iPad. A tablet with a mobile ARM-based processor behind it, supports a keyboard it can be attached to through magnets. It also works well with a stylus called the Apple Pencil. It is fast, it's great, it has all the apps you need, and it's all sold separately. Now let's change the OS to Windows 11, make the keyboard simpler but a bit less easy to use, add a kickstand to its back, add a stylus, add a few upgrades, a few downgrades, and let's sell everything separately. That's what the Surface Pro X is. Well, almost. Let us explain. The Surface Pro X, primarily straight out of the box, is a Windows 11 tablet. It comes with a handy kickstand which makes using it easier. Easier because with the 13-inch display, it can get very heavy for the hands to operate while being held up. Even if the Pro X does not get that thick, but with metal all around and relatively thinner bezels on the front, it sure does look premium. It has two USB-C ports and the volume rocker on the left side and the magnetic surface connector for charging along with the power button on the right side. It mysteriously lacks a headphone jack. Right above the display is the front camera with Windows Hello support. It sits at the top when the tablet is in landscape mode, which is convenient. It works great for video calls. The display up front is a 13-inch one. Its aspect ratio is 3:2 and the resolution is 2880 by 1920. The display is sharp and color accurate. It gets bright just enough for the outdoor sun. Right beside the display on each side are front-facing speakers. The sound they push out is decent even if they lack a good bass response. Inside the Pro X, everything is powered by an ARM chip developed by Qualcomm called the SQ1. There is another, more powerful version of the chip called the SQ2, but that's available for just business customers. It is a chip developed with an architecture very similar to the one in a smartphone, just for a tablet with Windows 11 on it. Now, an ARM chip on a Windows tablet is a dual-edged sword. It means lightning-quick boot times, faster performance, good battery life, and a slimmer and lighter design without any deficiency in performance. But at the same time, the apps that work on other Windows products won't work here. If they do, there would be slowdowns. So most of the apps like Google Chrome, Spotify, WhatsApp, Zoom, and so on, which already have their ARM versions, work well and fast. The other apps can be much slower since they lack the optimizations to work on the device. So if we use the everyday apps listed above, the performance from the tablet is stellar without any lag. With Windows 11, which is a software more comfortably used with a keyboard and mouse, selling a tablet without at least the keyboard in the box is hard to accept. And even with the ARM chip inside, the battery is not as great as one would think. It lasts for 8 hours, which will only be just enough for an entire workday, but just by the skin of your teeth. And for everything good and bad with the Microsoft Surface Pro X, it starts at the price of 84,994 rupees with the keyboard and pen sold separately. Yes, the Surface Pro X is very similar to the iPad Pro. It does have upgrades over it, but at the same time, the downgrades are all there to see. With better app support, better optimizations, much faster performance and a much better display, the iPad Pro is not only easier to use, getting the smaller 11-inch version for the same storage and cheaper price is the better choice here. So recommending the Surface Pro X is hard, and if your requirement is Windows, you will be much better off with a laptop.
Let's move on now to the DJI Ronin now. This is where I think the camera person that is with me right now, our DOP, our Mr. Imagination, this is where he said he gets very, very jealous, right? Very, very jealous. He's like, this is the kind of equipment we should be doing this show on, because this is fascinating. This is where your imagination meets reality. This is serious professional camera equipment mounted onto a gimbal. You can operate it on your own. You don't need anybody else. You can still get cinematic stuff from this, or you can do it with a crew, and this becomes a very, very worthy ally. Here's our review.
All the shots that you saw were recorded through a very special product. And that product is one of those that just shake up the industry by being unique and brilliant. We are talking about the DJI Ronin 4D, a cinema camera merged with a gimbal. Yes, that is correct. A capable cinema camera with an inbuilt gimbal mechanism made from the ground up by DJI. How does it work? Well, that is exactly what we're here to tell you. The Ronin 4D is not only the first cinema camera with an integrated gimbal, the gimbal itself is a 4-axis one instead of the average 3-axis. And just like any of the other DJI products, it is built with a focus on extreme quality, mobility, versatility, and ergonomics. The buttons everywhere are large and tactile, so if one is shooting with the gloves on, there won't be any problems. The LCD monitor attached to the camera is a massive one with buttons everywhere for the times the touchscreen can't be used. On the sides are slots for handles, which are the best way to use the camera. Both the handles come with controls to handle the gimbal, focus and recording. Even though it is easy to hold and operate, for extended use it can be hard to hold because the camera with everything attached to it gets extremely heavy. But it does come with places for attachments and latches to make it a part of a rig to hold it up easily. Up front, the lenses are also switchable, so the filmmaker can easily get the lens or the focal length they desire. Once switched on, which takes time, the 4D can be used as a normal cinema camera. Pressing the 4D button activates the gimbal on the camera to get the ultra smooth stabilized shots. And even though a cinema camera, it does possess some extremely smart features. It comes with autofocus, which works with AI for solo operators. The side handles can be attached to the external wireless monitor that has to be watched separately, which can be used to remotely control the movement of the camera, the settings and recording. When we talk about the image quality, the Ronin 4D is amazing with that too. It can record up to 6K ProRes footage, which is simply put one of the best dynamic dense footage you can record on a camera. It offers plenty of dynamic range and color metadata that the editor can easily manipulate the footage and tune it to what they like. If one wants to edit the footage recorded straight out of the camera, they're going to be fine too. The camera by default offers neutral skin tones and colors along with just the correct amount of sharpness and details. As for battery life, the Ronin 4D lasts for a promised 2.5 hours even with the gimbal system enabled. And the batteries that work on the Ronin gimbals work with the camera as well. And that is exactly what this camera is all about. A one-stop solution for everything one might need. A camera that limits the amount of gear one needs to carry. It has a 1TB SSD for storage, inbuilt ND filters for shooting outside, switchable batteries, along with just being a cinema camera with an integrated gimbal. And for all this, it does come with a premium price of 7,50,000. But even at such a premium price, it is surely worth it for the filmmakers who have long been looking for a better solution for all of their handheld cinematic sequences.
Let's take a quick break right now on the show. When we come back, lots more happening. And let's move on now to Fitbit. They have a new fitness band out. This is beautiful looking. As always, Fitbit gets the aesthetics right, the sensors right. And this one has a great AMOLED display. Take a look.
This is the Fitbit Sense. It is a Fitbit Charge, a fitness band with smartwatch features integrated into it. There have been many attempts at this from many different companies. This one seems to be a bit different, all because of the better choices made. Let us explain how. Let's start with the design. While from first sight the Sense seems very similar to an Apple Watch in terms of looks, it still finds its own identity with some upgrades and downgrades. It has a square display with considerable bezels. The casing is stainless steel with a glossy upper bezel and a matte grey casing underneath. The glass on top is Gorilla Glass, which melts into the sides of the display. Even so, the glass doesn't seem the strongest as it already had some scratches over it. The left side has a touch-sensitive button that gives haptic feedback when pressed. It activates the display and opens the user's preferred app when held down. The casing throughout feels extremely premium and is also sealed well enough to be water resistant up to 50 meters. So taking the watch along for a swim in the pool is also possible. The display up front is extremely impressive even with all the bezels around it. It is a sharp, responsive AMOLED display. It gets really bright outside under the sun. The only thing that seems a bit less responsive is what shows up on the display. The UI, while mostly remaining smooth and easy to operate, can feel a bit slow and choppy at times. Swiping down shows the notifications, swiping left takes you to all the apps on the watch, and swiping right grants access to quick settings. Swiping up shows all the fitness stats from the day along with the weather. It also goes a step beyond and offers voice assistance with options for Google Assistant or Alexa. The watch also offers support for notifications and replying to messages using dictation. The notifications are prompt and quick, and the user can select which apps can notify on the watch through the Fitbit app on the phone. The app can also be used to change the watch faces, which are abundantly available for the Fitbit Sense. As for the sensors on board, they are plenty and accurate. The common ones like heart rate sensor, SpO2 sensor and pedometer are available, along with the less common ones like skin temperature sensor, ECG and EDA scanners. The EDA scan helps take note of the stress levels of the user, both mental and physical stress. It is detected by passing small electric currents in the body to test the conductivity of the skin. The sleep tracking also works well, and based on SpO2 levels throughout the night, the watch can detect the quality of sleep and a score is awarded to the user based on the data collected. The watch also combines the data collected and calculates scores and metrics for the user's health and wellness, which can all be seen and tracked over time through the Fitbit app. The watch also has GPS, so it can keep a track of all of the user's runs, walks, and cycling routes. The battery life on the watch is limited to 6 days, which can be reduced if the user does long workouts each and every day. While it is better than something like an Apple Watch, there are many fitness watches and bands that offer a much better battery life. As we said in the beginning, the Fitbit Sense is a merger of the Fitbit Charge with some of the very useful smartwatch features. It does end up damaging the battery life, but at the same time it also balances out the features of a smartwatch and a fitness band much better than many other smartwatches. Plus, the ecosystem of all the smart fitness features from Fitbit is made available to the users. So at a price of 22,999 rupees, it is worth it and will be firmly recommended by us.
That then was the Gadget 360 show for this week. We are here right now. Do remember to tune into Cell Guru. Also, if you want to see what happens inside a massive factory like this, we'll see you next week on the Gadget 360 show.